It's 12:30, and we have a joint meeting going on here, so we do need to call both commissions to their order. And it is, like I said, 12:30, and it's September 16, 2019. I call to order the special meeting between the Saline County Commission and the City of Salina. We'll dispense with calling the roll, as I see all of our commissioners are present. And I'll yield to Mayor Davis.
We do have one commissioner not here, so for the sake of certainty, ask for a roll call from the city, please.
Mayor Davis,
Here.
Commissioner Hay,
Here.
Commissioner Hodges, Commissioner Hoppett,
Here.
Commissioner Ryan.
Here.
Thank you. We're now ready for session.
From our standpoint, we only have one item on the agenda today, and that's the joint city-county meeting in regards to the Livestock and Expo Center. And that having been said, I will yield to the administrators.
I guess we'll just start off and thank you very much for your attendance today. Both of our entities have exchanged some correspondence over the last several months in regards to the Livestock and Expo Center. So this meeting today is really just the most natural next step for both entities to meet and discuss the future and what the next steps might be. The county has met several times to discuss renderings that have been prepared by GH2 Architects, and we have Kayla Adi here today to assist us with some of the conversation. We do feel that what has been presented to us is very much in line with what we feel is the desires of the city. So this discussion today is for us to present some of these renderings and have some further dialogue on what the county's concerns are, what our ideas are, and the plans and the desires for the obtaining of a long-term lease. We do want to hear from the City Commission on what your thoughts and desires are, so that if a long-term lease is obtainable, how it is that administration can best articulate language that could be incorporated into that lease. This is not intended to be any type of a negotiation session, rather healthy discussion so both of our sides can express their thoughts and information can be exchanged between both entities. So I've kind of prepared a very rough draft, I guess, agenda more or less, just so that I can kind of keep on and we can keep our discussions to what's necessary. So with that, what I think the best thing that we can possibly do at this point is I would like to turn some of the information over to Kayla, since her and her team has been working extremely hard. And she's got a PowerPoint presentation as well as some graphics that can be handed out appropriately to start some of our discussions today. So, Kayla, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you guys for allowing me to meet with you guys to present what we've been working on. We do have the PowerPoint. Is that something that you'd prefer to click through?
Yep.
If you can just go to the full slideshow. The information is also contained in the handout that's being passed around, so you can have that for easy reference. What we have done is worked with Saline County to be able to prepare renderings to showcase some of these improvements we've been discussing. So we still have similar information as what we've shared in the previous sessions, but to start by just clicking to the next slide. Hannah, would you be able to click next slide? Thank you. Just overview real quick of what the proposed renovations and additions are, just to refresh your memory and to take a look at the preliminary cost estimate. We have some items that are included in what we call the base estimate, and then some potential alternates that can be up for discussion, and then just really open up for next steps. The next slide is just an overview where we've been and where we are now. We've gathered the site information and we've discussed what the requirements are for the facilities and the priorities to be able to operate. And then we've also coordinated with the proposed River and Kenwood Park improvements, and we've been working with Martha Tasker and HDR to make sure that the fair and the Expo Center are fitting within that overall master plan. And then we've developed what we are calling the master plan for the Livestock and Expo Center, with a few variations that are still up for discussion, and then produce the renderings to really showcase what this might look like. So we're going to walk through now what the master plan is. The next slide. Just for orientation, we have called out here in the gray boxes are the existing facilities. We have Ag Hall here in the center with Barn 1 in the office to the east and Barn 2. 4-H building, and Kenwood Hall. And as part of moving forward, it's proposed that all of those buildings would remain. There's different improvements that we'll discuss for each, but those would stay as part of the facility. The changes that would come to the facility are to remove barns 3, 5, and 6 and replace with a new warm-up arena and additional multi-use barn. It can be set up to have 78 10x10 stalls, or it can be opened up for different expos or trade shows or livestock shows. Has washrooms and restrooms as support, and then it connects into an 80-foot by 100-foot warm-up arena that has covered entry into Ag Hall. So that would let you be in the stall barn and be able to circulate through to warm up and then to compete in Ag Hall all under one roof. And then to support that, the items that are shown in the orange areas are identified as circulation areas for loading and unloading and for truck and trailer parking areas. This graphic does show that the 10 RV hookups that are existing on site today would remain, and then something to complement it to make it feel more of an improved campus would be to have some additional perimeter fencing and landscaping improvements. So we've called out here and shown on the renderings to have perimeter fencing wrapping around the existing Expo Center, and then the green shaded areas are showing some specific planned areas for some landscaping improvements. So I think we'll just click through now the next slides and show a progression of these renderings. This image is showing what the entry view from Greeley Avenue would look like. So you're seeing in the background Barn 1, and this is showcasing the proposed perimeter site fencing, landscaping features, some nice signage to be able to let people know that they have arrived. We've also shown here a possible definition. It's still something to be discussed. Is the fencing the most appropriate, or should it be more definition in ground material to be able to define where the entrance point is to come up for service and loading and unloading to Barn 1 versus where that loading dock is located. And part of the improvements proposed is to add a concrete apron to that loading dock. And then as we go through the next slide, this is bringing you into the proposed new building that would be the 78 10x10 stalls. That's shown here, and on the plan that would be this large area. It is planned for that to be clear span, so you wouldn't have any columns, so you could be able to have the portable stalls taken down and put away and make it very flexible use. And then on the right hand side of the screen are showing the wash areas, and then in the view beyond that is the warm-up area that would lead into Ag Hall. And then this is an exterior rendering showing the proposed pre-engineered metal building, which would have metal siding that would tie into the existing facilities, and a wainscot that could be either a split face material or a different color metal panel, something that would still tie into the other facility improvements. And then the next slide is showing a rendering of the existing fire pit that is located by the RV spots. And that is looking back towards the east. You're seeing Ag Hall in the background, and then the new warm-up arena and new stall barn. And then this is truck and trailer parking that's existing today that would continue to be utilized for that. This is showing a view looking at Barn 1 and proposing to have the additional perimeter fencing to really tie the whole campus together, a few trees and landscaping elements. And then leading down in front of Ag Hall is a proposed new plaza. Next slide. This is coming back looking towards the west, and you can see the Tony's Pizza Event Center and the 4-H building, and again tying in with perimeter site fencing and a little bit of landscaping, and that is going to lead up to Ag Hall where we have the proposed new plaza located. And this is
I think you're actually looking to the east, weren't you?
Yes, from the west to the east. Excuse me. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Yep. And this is actually, I think it should activate an animation. If not, we can hop out and get a different file. This would be the plaza now located in front of Ag Hall, between Ag Hall and the Tony's Pizza Event Center. This was planned to be circulation for pedestrians to be able to filter through on event days. We do have locations planned out that you'd be able to have food trucks or vendors set up to be able to really activate the space. We have bollards shown here to be able to help to protect the vehicular traffic from entering that location, but still allow service if you need to in certain areas. And so this would be a mixture of hardscape as well as landscape to really help to bring that plaza to life. And then this is really the more detailed information. It's similar to what you've seen presented in the past, and there is a summary in the bottom right of your placemat. This is showing on the left-hand side, or what we've called out as really proposed as the base improvements, but then we've been discussing a few variations that are additional costs, and those are called alternates in this right corner. So just to recap, we have item A is replacing of the barns 3, 5, and 6, coming back in with that new warm-up arena and new stall barn. That's subtotal is $2.1 million, and the new enclosed warm-up arena at $800,000. Then we have other possible improvements called out that we've been discussing, including new electrical service at barn 1 to enclose barn 2 with a new siding material and overhead doors. There is a discussion that right now you can see through the space and you can see if it's used for storage and chain link fins. So this would be to really clean up the aesthetic and tie that together with the same skinning as the other buildings have on campus. Item 3 is ventilation and exhaust in Ag Hall, just improving upon the mechanical equipment that's there. Item 4 would be replacing windows at Ag Hall. Item 5 is just painting of the doors to improve those. Item 6 would be to reskin with metal panel and paint at barn 1, and then also broken down is Kenwood Hall. I'm just showing you a few of the options for how to upgrade what we're calling the skin or the outer material of those buildings. And then item D is capturing your site work items. We have an allowance to cover the utilities and the grading and earthwork required for that new building, for the demoing of the barns. And then we have under site work also the allowance for the plaza improvements at Ag Hall, the perimeter site with signage, landscaping, and the concrete apron. And then in the upper right, the alternates that have been discussed that we'd like feedback on for both if they would be required and for the cost share of those is the irrigation for the site perimeter landscaping. That's an item that's not currently included in the base that needs to be considered. And then a few different options for the skinning of the buildings. Right now we've been looking at metal panel, which is very durable. It is existing on site, so it would tie into that campus aesthetic. But another option would be to do an EIFS wainscot or a split face block wainscot. The pros and cons to that, split face is a little bit more expensive, but it's very, very durable. It's easy to maintain. If you back into it, it takes abuse very well. The EIFS is less costly than that, but it is more prone to puncture and can be more at risk of damage. And then we also have listed as alternate number 5, potential additional ventilation and exhaust at barn 2, that if we were to fully enclose that, it would make it a much more hot space that needed to be ventilated and have exhaust to make it more comfortable. And item 6 would be replacing material covering the windows at the 4-H building. That's a small item, but just a little note as you're walking the campus that there are some windows that could use a little bit of an upgrade with the covering of those. And then this is just showing an aerial view, just recapping it. We do have an animation view if that would be of help, that we can hop out and activate that file, but we can also just scroll back through these slides. And if there's anything you'd like me to go into more detail on with the renderings, really just let me know what questions you have, and then we can move forward with the agenda.
I guess I did have one clarification question. Here, about the road between Tony's Pizza Event Center and Ag Hall is Bob Flaherty Drive.
Mm-hmm.
So here it looks like it's open, but in that other rendering in the plaza, it looked like the plaza
Sure.
extended into the street.
So the
maybe?
roadway you mentioned is located right here, and it is proposed to remain open. The black little boxes are indicating the bollards, so we would locate there to be able to help protect vehicles from entering that space, but do propose the majority of the time it would be open. And we discussed having either removable bollards or using just temporary barricades to be able to block off, so that you'd be able to have control here and here to really open that plaza between both buildings to be just contiguous. But that was an item we discussed, having it open majority of the time and just on special event days to use barricades or other means to be able to block it off.
Do any of the commissioners have any particular questions or anything that you're wanting to go back and review or look at?
With all the utilities that you're talking about putting in with the new structures, are they going to be underground utilities or will be overhead utilities?
The new utilities would be underground. We do have a note in the cost estimate. We're not proposing that all existing power lines on site be moved underground. That would be an additional cost item. It would just be new utilities associated only with new construction of the warm-up building and the stall room.
So in the plaza concept that you have there in front of the Ag Mall, the rendering doesn't show any power lines or anything, but it kind of looks like this today. Would those go away?
We could see if that could be worked into the budget, but we have a note on that cost estimate that overhead lines that are existing aren't within the needs of the budget at the moment to put them all underground. It would just be running new power lines to be able to feed the new buildings.
I don't think, to answer your question, Carl, I don't think it's among the county commissioners that we're willing to put them underground. I mean, I think that's $1 million cost, or
Well,
close to it.
certainly for all of it, but maybe it could be pieced. Maybe, I mean, I think it would detract quite a bit from the aesthetics of the
I'm not
improvement of the
disagreeing with
west
that.
side of the building if the several large poles that are right in front of your entrance went away. So maybe that for me that's just me.
I agree.
Looks good for something that you're trying to make look nice.
I don't think the $5.7 million that's listed here includes any underground.
It would really be just for the new stall barn, just a connector line over for electrical to be able to feed it, not on the whole site. If you go back to the cost estimate, we can just clarify that the estimate does not include relocating existing overhead utility lines to underground. That's definitely something we can help you to estimate the cost, but we know that it's not within the budget that's currently been allocated.
I couldn't quite remember, I can't read that from here. But
Sure.
Is the ventilation costs for Ag Hall?
Yes.
Limited?
Additional ventilation exhaust for Ag Hall, which is $147,500.
Taylor, just a quick question, or just can we go back to that aerial view that we was at right there? How do you propose, let's go back and say when and if this would go move forward here, that the arena, the Tri-Rivers Fair, or the Tri-Rivers Stadium would be disappeared, and we wouldn't have that. And we'd utilize the Tony's Pizza Event Center for horses to get. How do you propose to get them from over there in the deal to?
How we've typically done it in the past, and there have been other livestock and horse shows held in the event center, they typically put a barricade right down here at that entry point to be able to block off vehicular access, and then also down here. And that allows, if you're in barn 1 or the new barn, to be able to use this roadway and this roadway south of the event center and enter into the back service door.
Okay.
So it would really be just having to use barricades to be able to block off other traffic to make it safe for livestock and horses and exhibitors to circulate.
Is that surface, the road surface a problem?
It's not a problem for horses or other livestock to be led over. It is a problem for rough stock that aren't led, that would be needing to be pushed because of just the distance you'd have to run fencing. For example, if you're pushing bulls over for a bull riding, that wouldn't be very functional, but it's been done numerous times. For example, for the draft horse show, I was one of those exhibitors that brought my horse over and we didn't have any issue, very similar to how other facilities operate.
I know Roger brought it up a second ago, but that's probably the biggest deal. The elephant in the room right now still is, what plans do we have for the Tri-Rivers Arena over there? The way that, the county's used it for years and years for the rodeo, and now, the way it's setting, I mean, nobody seems to want to say exactly what we're going to do with. Sooner or later, it'll be a bigger eyesore than it already is.
I defer to the administrators on this, but technically, I don't think that's part of the lease, is it? I don't think that's part of the Expo Center fairground. That's not part of it.
Yeah, I believe there's a lease in place for that.
Just for a couple days.
Do you know about that here?
What did I read on that? And it's in effect for the stadium until 2023 is what I read.
Year round?
Just till 2023.
Yeah, but I mean year round, 365 days a year?
But the stadium is actually owned by the city, the grandstand.
Yeah, I think from the city
That's
side-
where the difference comes in. The stadium is owned by the city, whereas the Expo Center buildings are owned by the county.
Yeah, I think from the city's perspective, we're looking at the county to find out what your intentions are for continued use for the fair in the rodeo arena, or whether you're planning to shift away from it.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was thinking that earlier conversations surrounded around incorporating Tony's Pizza Center to take off the burden of that.
There was
facility.
there was a willingness on the city's part to make the Tony's Pizza Event Center.
We never have even emphasized the rodeo arena, knowing that, first of all, the structure belongs to the city, and second, the city wanted something done to it, so we thought, well, it's theirs.
Our plans do not include that property.
I agree.
Yeah, that's helpful, because the last conversation, and I think the fair board was involved as well, and the reason I asked the question about the animals on the surface was, the last I recall, was there was opposition to the Tony's Pizza Event Center as a venue because of the surface in question. And so we were kind of left up in the air as to whether our offer was workable.
Well, and you're right, it doesn't serve them as well as what the stadium does,
Sure.
but that's the fair board's concern, and more so than ours.
If I'm looking at it as a city taxpayer and a county taxpayer, that is not land used to its highest use. 3 or 4 days a year. So, I mean, it's not us against you, I'm on both, and that doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, Kayla kind of touched on the animals going over there, and I'll tell you that the Expo Fest, which is coming to town in, 6 months or something like that, they have purchased, at their expense, AstroTurf to be laid down on the hard surface to get the animals over there. And in response, and Kayla aptly said it, when you're herding animals, such as rodeo stock, they don't care what's there, they're gonna be tearing stuff up in a hurry. Your big horses you can lead and ride over there, no problem. That'll help with their footing and so forth. But the rodeo stock, to move them like that is pretty much prohibitive.
Well, I don't know the specifics of how Spectre's done rodeos in the arena, but I know I assume they do it in closer quarters in terms of the bulls and things that
In the
they
past,
address it somehow.
they've just backed the trailer up to the elephant board and then
Right.
ran a pin into the arena, is what they've done in the past.
So there is a way.
Oh, yeah, there's a way.
Is that a complete vote, or is that just
So as it stands right now,
Yeah.
the city's not willing to put any money into that rodeo arena, and the county's not really willing to put any money into that arena, so it's gonna set the way it is until one or the other entities decide we're gonna do something with it.
Until you decide what to do with your property.
If the county no longer wishes to lease it, then it would become our decision on how to.
But it doesn't, the lease run out in 2023,
Right.
so we still got,
But we're renegotiating our lease.
Yeah, we're in the middle of that at the moment, but if the lease doesn't continue, if the county doesn't wish to renew the lease on the rodeo arena, then the city would start making appropriate plans.
Is that a straight 3 years, or is that a series of 1 year?
That is a series of 1-year extensions.
Yeah.
But it has been agreed upon through 2023.
It takes an annual notice from the county that you intend to
To do
have
it,
the fair,
yes.
and then it's a series of annual renewals through that term.
And Mike, was there a maximum number of years that could happen? I think. that was
Yeah, I
mentioned
think
in the comment.
there was, I believe number
5%.
4, wasn't there, or 5? I believe 2023 is the right date for the end.
So that is the end of it.
Right. Yeah, which is why we wanted to get a new lease in place in advance of that. So, as it's been described, is that project scope and budget representative of what the county is supportive of?
I think this is where the dialogue that was needed for this is, it is definitely, in our opinion, attractive, and I do not want to speak, for the full board of the commissioners. However, how we get there is still what we are discussing.
If I could ask, and I'm sorry to forget your name.
Kayla.
Okay.
Yep.
From the architectural perspective, do you have a natural progression of how this would unfold?
I think that's something we want to visit with Rick in detail to understand what events he has coming up and what leasing he has for the facilities, so that we could really time the new construction of the warm-up arena and the new stall barn for when we can demo the existing barns to let the new construction occur, just to try to make sure that we aren't overlapping any bookings he has in place. But we could definitely develop a phasing plan for when the new construction needs to happen, and then time the other improvements when he doesn't have those buildings that are going to be booked. For example, not during the fair, not during Equifest, so we can try to be sensitive to have construction occur during lower use times.
So
That schedule was provided to the city, if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it, Hannah? Didn't we? We did not provide that to the
No,
city?
we did not. That was what we wanted to have a discussion on our.
And quite frankly, we're faced with the same issue you are, and that's no money. You know, we're the taxpayers they're starting to get their backs up a little bit, and we're being asked to spend, we volunteered, I haven't, but we volunteered to spend $5.7 million here, and we've got some of that, but some of it's still going to go to the taxpayer, and we're taking taxpayer money that we've already accumulated to do this. So our plan or our thought was we were just going to be able to do the warm-up arena, which would coincide with getting more shows to town and start from there. And we were going to need your help in terms of working with us so that we can accumulate the money.
Well, that's the reason I was asking. An option that we discussed before when you not looked at this was, it suggested that the new barn, I don't know if it's going to have a number, but the one attached to the warm-up arena will come later. This looks like it's a one-piece construction.
This is a picture of a finished product.
Yes.
In
Yeah.
5 years, 10 years, whatever we can get it done in.
But we could certainly have it be a package where only the new warm-up and the covered entry to Ag Hall is phase one, and then we could have that metal building design where you could easily add on phase two with the stall barn. That's something very easy to handle with construction.
And so the 3, 5, and 6 would not be demolished until that new barn on the back end of the warm-up arena is being
They likely
constructed.
would need to be because of just regrading of the area and also just service with the access into it, that I think that those barns would need to be demoed to be able to allow for the new warm-up to be constructed.
So even without 3, 5, and 6, thank you. You still have enough usable barn space?
I'd have to watch my schedule and kind of plan that, because I could set portable stalls at barn 2 to make up for some of that difference, for some of the 100-head shows or whatever. But for the larger shows like the Palomino, I use everything. For the Palomino, Equifest, we use everything. The fair uses everything. So I just have to look at my schedule and see how that would fit in.
For us to economically, we've got the money in place to build the warm-up arena. And it's being told to us by Rick and Kayla that should be our first step in order to get these programs or these events brought to town in the first place. We could start building from there. But to go to building 3, 5, and 6, demo them, do all of the other work, we don't have the money in place, and I don't feel like asking the taxpayer for it right now.
Okay, well, that's the question. Can you build a warm-up arena without removing 3, 5, and 6?
We can definitely do it if we keep 3 and 6, but 5 is the one that's getting close enough that we'd have to just study that. We'll have to look at a site survey to study that further. That's something we need to confirm, just because of locations.
Just one for, when you say you have enough money for the warm-up arena, the entire L or a portion of it?
No, the warm-up arena is the part, take that back.
The 80 by 100.
Right.
So for
Okay.
reference
That's
on
the
the
portion that
plan,
comes straight back out of the Ag Hall.
Okay.
and
that's
then this
all.
would be what we're calling the stall barn portion.
And what's the cost on it?
2.9 million, what's the arena?
I believe it was 810,000.
800 and,
Double check.
around 800, between 8, yeah, $810,000.
$810,000.
One general question that I want to ask my city friends is there any correlation to dollars spent versus lease time? I mean, do those two go hand in hand?
At the extremes. But, I mean, a 1-year lease would obviously be different from 25-year lease.
Right. Sorry. Where I was at was, we're talking, how much is, for a 10-year lease, how much do we have to spend to get a 50-year lease? What are the parameters there? How much skin do we have to have in the game to, as it,
Well, we'd like to see certainly the aesthetic developments sooner because we plan to have the river function.
Okay, we'll stop there then. If we're gonna do this in tune with the river project, can you present us with where you're gonna start and when you're gonna start and what you expect us to do along the river?
Right this second, no, that someone down at
Well,
the table might.
Well, that was part of the PowerPoint that we presented as our first presentation. So yeah, we could do that.
But,
As far as.
but okay, let's assume that they're on the road, that we go in, and this picture that's there with the trees and so forth, that we plant all that, and then here comes your excavators and your dump trucks and everything else to clean all the silt or whatever you do for the river project.
Well, actually, we tasked our designers to go back and figure out that grading and that elevation and come up with a creek bank elevation that left sufficient parking on the backside of Bob Clareby, whatever the road is behind the barn. I'm not sure it has a name.
Kenwood Drive.
But we were able to confirm that we could do the river work and still leave a level surface to allow the fifth wheel and truck and trailer parking back of curb.
I think
when all is said and
that's
done.
one of the adjustments we made.
Right.
Originally, we were taking that road
I
out.
remember that.
So we left that road, adjusted the bankage so that we wouldn't have that problem for you.
What time frame is that on?
I'm gonna call on Martha. She's working on the plans.
Some of our time frame is a little dependent upon the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, who's just now getting started on that feasibility study in their design. So we haven't seen that contract and that time schedule, Mike, to work through that. Our first phase of construction probably would be just some type of channel work in this area, not the full build out of the walkways and such through this area, based on what we think we have for available dollars. So the timing in this area is probably down the road some, if that makes sense, Mike, not the first phase of construction.
And the Corps has been distracted by flooding and hurricanes, so they haven't been returning our calls.
So Bob, have I got this right then? You said you guys got enough to do the 810K for the warm-up arena right now.
That's what I'm being
So,
told.
and you don't want to go to the city right now, to the citizens right now and say, hey, we need some more money, okay? So I think we looked and offered, or we proposed a 25-year lease. So even at a 25-year lease, and only spending $810,000, that really isn't that's.
Well, if that's all we'd spend over the 25-year period, but we're gonna continue to pump $500,000 a year in there, that was in our agreement too.
But, oh yeah, in your agreement, but that money was, how much of that was for aesthetics?
About
$500,000.
About 200,000.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
if the city worked with you, what would the priority and the timeline look like?
Well, that's what I was getting ready to ask you. We've got an A, B, C, and a D here, and our D is your A. And that's called site work. And I'm thinking, maybe we need to start thinking backwards, and we'll bring our view site down lower, and we'll put in bushes and trees and that type of thing.
The site work is, I think, one thing we think you could actually stretch over time. Because, let's face it, the river's not ready for you to match anything right now anyway. And
Well, I would agree with you, but that's not what I heard a little bit ago, I didn't think, or at least.
our A, correct me if I'm wrong, would be the warm-up arena. So would be an agreement there?
We are, but I thought I just heard the site work is, the aesthetics is what you're,
No, because I think that's the most malleable, the most flexible of all the aesthetic enhancements. Because, who knows, there may be a last minute change to the river grading or something. But as far as moving dirt, landscape, that can continue for years. And you may get help from unknown places with some of that.
let me go to Kayla then with the next question. If we go ahead with the warm-up arena and then take D, which is site work, and move it up to our next priority, is that feasible to do that and still have to come back at a later time to do buildings 3, 5, 6? Or are we going to be stepping all over ourselves and tearing things up to be able to get back in there to do the work?
Well, we don't have that chart.
Yeah.
I'm kind of working,
I
I'm
know.
working at a disadvantage,
I
because you're
know.
talking A and D, and I know.
I've got some copies.
Thank you.
I believe so, that we could have phase one being proposed to have a new enclosed warm-up arena and the covered connector to Ag Hall, as well as all the items proposed under site work. We would need to just double check the distance from the new warm-up building, the southern edge of that, to the existing barn 5. But I believe that that should be within enough distance that we would be able to make that work. There would just be additional grading work required after we demo 3, 5, and 6 down the road. But we may need the site work that is captured under item D, and then sub-item 1, site work allowance. There would be some of that money we would need to allocate up to A because of the site work that would be required for those buildings when they happen.
And I haven't mentioned this to or asked my other commissioners about this, I'm just floating this idea, is really site work right now is just one thing, but really we could split that site work up to, the unknown, I think, is Kenwood Drive in the river, but Bob Flaherty Drive, which is.
Well, Bob Flaherty drives in between the two buildings.
Right, and so that to me is, okay, I'm willing to move up site work up, half of it, I mean, not the whole, I totally agree that there's probably too many unknowns on Kenwood. And so that makes it more affordable for us to make that priority number 2, because I know that, it's important to all of us. We want that. I want that look. Not that one. I want the one, I want that other look, But this one, maybe it's too many unknowns, and maybe we just split the site work into 2 things.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not speaking for the city commissioners at the moment, but I think perimeter site work could, do a lot in terms of aesthetic appeal and nothing more than obstructing the view from the driving public to the gravel surface and even some parts of the building that you're talking about wainscoting.
Sounds like we're getting hung up on some small things that we don't need to, from both sides, I think that, and I agree with you. I don't know if it's been conveyed that even though our new lease wouldn't start until 2024, we would be willing to start immediately with this warm-up arena. And we've got that cash in hand, and we would get that part of it started right away, which would, get things to flowing quicker. If that's something that appeases the city.
That is as long as you can function. She said 5 has to come out.
5, there's only 16 stalls, I could get by without more than 5.
Right, and that's the one that would have to be moved just
That's
to
the
allow
only
the
one that's
construction.
in with close enough proximity that we'd need to study with the surveyor to confer, just for proximity for construction and grading.
All right, so some of the demo, it's in A1 would have to occur if you do.
Correct, but there would be
Yeah.
items within D site work allowance, D1, that we have that allowance to capture the grading and the new utilities to the new construction. So there'd be a little bit of give and take. And we can revise this estimate and do that study to be able to give you more accurate numbers with kind of shuffling these items.
From a customer perspective, folks who are leasing buildings where it shows, which of these are they saying, gosh, you really gotta fix this now? I'm guessing, is there any ventilation? That may be just my city.
From a
Ventilation,
customer,
electrical.
from a customer perspective, number 1, they want that warm. Then they want ventilation. That's been a complaint for years, ventilation and ag hall and barn work and electrical.
Where is that on? I saw it.
Under C.
For the electrical environment, okay.
Yeah, and see, that's a small cost, even though that's a big item for the people that are using it. I mean, it's a small cost in this picture, that's $51,000. And that's an estimate, but, $51,000 on a $5 million project is,
But it keeps your customers happy. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta shift, I mean, you want it to be functional, at least for me. It's gotta be functional no matter what you do. And barn one's no good without electrical ventilation. That's a lot down. As far as your customers are concerned.
Speaking of customers, we just booked Equifax, and they want to stay here, that I know of, at least 5 years.
Like,
But they expect, they're gonna expect some of this stuff to get done, not in the future, but now.
So, yeah, what's the minimum you think your customer on this list, your customers really need in the next 2 years?
Warm up arena, ventilation,
Because I really think that landscaping, you make it, Master Gardeners kind of give us this plot of land, we'll do this, you make it smart, but the landscaping may come to you. I don't see that as a lump sum thing that you have to do right away.
I appreciate your willingness to think of it in that direction.
But we can have a pretty landscape place, but if there's no warm-up arena and no burn, then that.
And no customers.
Customers.
Kayla's been to a lot of livestock shows, and she can tell you that livestock people don't care about landscape. That's the least of their work.
They'll fertilize it for you, but.
Well, Bob, I guess it's getting back, I talk about this 810,000 again, and you said you don't want to go and ask for any more money. In the future, or leading up to the rest of this stuff that needs to be done, how are you planning on coming up with the $2,143,000 and the $847,000 and?
I believe that's in our CIP.
Correct.
That we have put into place as a budget line item over the years.
So to help answer that question is, so administration, we've really taken a very hard look at the finance piece of it and had to correlate it appropriately, not only with the potential aesthetic improvements, but also the functionality. So what we did and have discussed just very briefly is kind of that priority timeline, but then also how is it that we incorporate that both in our capital improvement plan. As it currently sets, we do have the money that is allocated to build that warm-up arena, as well as the different site improvements that would have to happen for that to be constructed. It is the intention and desire for us to continue to do $200,000 a year to build up that fund to take care of some of this. However, too, we also have the radio project that's associated that we did have to budget for appropriately in our capital improvement for 2020. So we did have to take some money away from the investment in capital improvement for the Expo Center to help us with the funds allocated for the radio project, but fully well knowing that I think we can anticipate for those numbers to be able to flop here in the next couple of years for us to really evaluate our capital improvement plan to start putting more money into that for those upgrades. It is going to be, it's going to have to be strategic, but our capital improvement plan is very robust, and I do feel that even $200,000 a year doesn't sound like a lot. We can make it work appropriately. It's just going to take us some time.
Joe, I'm talking a little bit loose in the we'd have to go to the taxpayers for more money. Specifically, we wouldn't go to them and say, we need $4 million for the Expo Center. We've got the money, like she said, in place. But if something else comes down the line, then we have to ask the taxpayers for money because we've already spent it on the Expo Center. That's where I'm coming from on that.
May I ask, how new stalls at $1.8 million, is that a 9-year project then, $200,000 a year?
If we projected it out appropriately, yes, it would be about a 10-year project.
So you save for the 10 and build it in year 10?
That would be kind of the intention. That's kind of what we've talked about. But again, all of it is really open to discussion on the county's part as far as prioritizing some of those projects to correlate it with the money that we have available to spend.
Somewhere between our loose estimates to begin with, or somewhere between 5 and 10. probably lean more towards the 10, just for those, because that is the biggest ticket in there.
Which doesn't bother me specifically, because the users, I'm just crunching the numbers there. I think from my point of view, I'm interested in looking, and I guess your users aren't interested in the aesthetics, but I'm kind of concerned with what the people at the TPAC see looking towards
sure.
that hall. So the plaza piece appeals to me.
We know that, and Rick knows that, but that's, you know, but I guess to attract Equifest or any other horse show, they're not as concerned with the bushes that are around there as we would be, you know, the state basketball tournament or something like that.
But if you're not concerned with improving the actual amenities that you're giving the paying customers, the warm-up building, the aisles, the barns, then why shouldn't we be concerned about an aesthetic element?
Well,
The intent of that cost.
We're hearing you, Carl. We're hearing you. We know that's what you want. We know that's part of the lease. If it were us building an expo arena, we probably wouldn't put the bushes in there. But we don't own the land. We're begging for a lease. You know, we're trying to work with you. And if that's what it takes to make the thing work, I think the consensus among our commissioners is that's what we'll do. But we can only got so much.
I'm assuming we could probably somewhere, either one of our groups could find $1,875 to paint the doors. So I hope that could be thrown in first. Okay, it's not much, but to what extent are your customers going to really insist that the windows and the ventilation at Ag Hall be done earlier rather than later?
Well, I think that would be in the first step. I mean, if we're talking Ag Hall, we're talking the building the warm-up arena, and Ag Hall would be a project.
So Ag Hall would include ventilation, exhaust, new windows, paint the doors,
Correct.
those three things.
I believe that's what we talked about.
And
in my-
plaza. Yeah, the plaza kind of slips in the back. I just need three of the shit.
I'm-
It's certainly
Good
what
point.
we have, it's certainly what we have discussed.
So, if I could put tick marks by, B is phase 1,
Yes.
and then the ventilation is in phase 1? Is C3? Is that what was just said?
I would say that it could be, and we're getting really close now on the money.
I was gonna just ask, was there anything else in phase 1?
That's the, I would say the ventilation, would you, of all the Ag Hall renovation, would that be your first priority, Rick?
And we discussed that last week about the warm-up arena and the plaza and the ventilation.
So if that's phase 1, knowing what that costs, knowing the radio project, knowing
See, are
the
you adding the
funding.
plaza into phase 1 too?
I'm sorry?
The plaza, did you add that into phase 1?
I don't think I'm in adding mode, I'm in asking mode.
Well, I mean, as far as
We have discussed that.
discussed and stuff.
You know, we're throwing these numbers out here, and we don't have a bid yet from a contractor, you know? So to commit to certain things up to a certain level is, we need bids too. I mean, we're taking an estimate, an architectural estimate, and trying to put it together. And this estimate is now getting a little older too as we go along, so.
The windows and the plaza cost about the same. So, in your mind, which would have the greater priority?
Well, I'd say so. To me, it would be, yeah, that makes sense.
But in our letter to you on September 3rd.
We have, that wasn't sent, yeah, that
Oh, that
wasn't
was
sent.
not sent?
No,
Okay.
I didn't
no. We had drafted one.
Baby.
So, we
I didn't
had,
hear anything.
Me neither.
Okay.
But
We
you know
had
that letter I
drafted
was
one,
talking about? It didn't go.
after we met with staff and talked with Rick about just the functionality piece of it, because what we were trying to do is really balance the aesthetic piece of it, of course, with the functionality of the property. So what we had kind of discussed as far as our immediate and probably immediate, like say next 2 to 3 years, is the warm-up arena, the upgrades to the windows and the ventilation in Ag Hall, the upgrades to the electrical service, which has become an issue for us, and then the consideration of that front plaza area in front of Ag Hall. Commissioner Ryan did bring up a good point, though, that has been kind of a sticking point with the plaza area is the utilities that are out front. So,
Yeah, I think it goes back to utilities again, because I'm like Bonnie, you look at this picture and I go, I want that. I want that, but you can't have that. We'll never have that. We'll
Until
never
somebody's
have-
willing to
yeah.
bury the
Yeah,
utilities.
unless somebody's willing to bury utilities, we're going to never have that picture right there.
so that's where our hang up on the plaza has been. It would be very nice to be able to accommodate that appropriately, and I think that we could from a financial standpoint. But again.
Not, whoa, not including the burying of the.
That's correct, yeah,
Then-
not including that, correct.
I'm
Not
misunderstood.
including that.
Couldn't slip that.
So you think electrical and the plaza could be in phase one, is that?
Depends on who pays for the electrical.
Setting aside electrical for a minute, just the plaza work and I'm just sincerely asking, I'm trying to make sure I have a clear understanding. And your phase one, the budget that you have for, call that phase one, warm-up arena, demolition at Ag Hall, and then where does that leave electrical in barn one and the plaza without electric? Is that
We're
in phase
starting
one
to
or
stretch
over
the
budget?
budget, because we were talking about 810, that's at 860, 960, there's $1 million.
It's roughly about, just under 2 million is what was kind of discussed. And
I don't think
could
for the
that-
things he's talking about, it's not quite 2 million.
No,
That's more like 1.2.
Now, electrical, you're referring to barn one only.
correct.
Yeah, that's the
I'm
$51,000.
assuming that's an absolute need at this point,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that needs to be in that first phase no matter what. I mean,
You could donate that out of your receipts next
I'm
month.
thinking, find somebody to donate that plaza. I mean,
That's good.
I mean, it's
Positive
one
thinking.
thing here that's
Positive thinking.
of that nature.
So is the phase one budget $2 million?
No, not with me, it is. I mean, I have 4 other guys, but not with me.
Just need 3.
Well, yeah, we just need 3. It could be. It's not with me.
I'm more confused now, and I have been,
Where I was trying to get an understanding of phase one and then get an understanding of the radio project and everything else to get a guesstimate of when phase two would begin. And then we could talk about what was in phase two.
Phase 1 is the Ag Hall, or I mean, the warm-up arena for $810,000. And you could throw in probably the additional $147,000 for additional ventilation, and then the $51,000 for the electrical, and that's $1 million. And from there, I'd have to go back and look at numbers. I don't know that we've got more than that to be able to just throw at this right now. I mean, $1 million is pretty much the size of it.
So
And that's the first year, and then the second year for phase
That's where I was headed
two
next,
would
yeah.
be.
Well, we're not into the second year. That second year would then go beyond probably 2023.
Because as far as unifying the campus, the plaza becomes even if the lines aren't buried, becomes.
You know, I wouldn't get in the way of that. If that's what you say is the priority to make the thing fly. We just have to cut somewhere. And I'll be honest with you, Kayla, I don't, $200,000 I think it is on that plaza. That seems a little high to me, but I don't know what it entails.
Right, allowance as designed with all the hardscaping, there would be bollards, there'd be electrical run-tos of the bollards, there'd be electrical hookups for the food trucks, there would be plumbing for some washdown hydrants, and landscaping, and a little bit of irrigation with the landscaping just in the plaza, not around the whole perimeter. But that is an allowance number. Another option you can consider is you can ask a design team to say, our budget is 100,000 instead of 200. What can we get for that budget? So that's something that is a little bit flexible. You have more flexibility with what the scope is for the plaza than with the building. So if you have even a $50,000 investment, you can say, what does that get me? If I invest this money, what kind of a plaza would that equate to?
Very
out of line to see if the city would put some skin in the game as far as the overhead utilities? Is that out of line? I mean, that's a sticking point.
Take that away and discuss it, but, and I mean, it's not a sticking point for me, but it just seems like, if I'm allowed to use such a phrase, putting lipstick on a pig to improve the appearances of that side of the building and leave all of that utility standing up there in front of it all. But it could always be taken care of down the road, so.
I'm not gonna be willing to spend the county's money doing that, to property that we don't own.
I think that you should use your areas as you see fit, but at this point, until the river materializes back there, that's the one aesthetic element that we could get, is that would face the building from that side. And if that could be at the front of whatever aesthetic thing that you can budget at the top, to me, that would be the important side to look at. Whether it's, the full budgeted plaza or something that's more modest.
I'm following you.
Just need to ask a question of a construction-oriented person. Would it be proper to assume that if those lines were buried after the plaza is constructed, the plaza gets torn up burying those lines?
Might be a little directional work, but I think you'd probably be better off doing it before you go to
That's
the
the way it is, yeah. I don't see how you can not have it tore up, part of it.
And for what it's worth, it's not a single line either. There's what, 4 to 6 lines?
Sat around, we all took tours around, anybody upwards while we went around the buildings. But, even, there's a couple key poles in the area that might be removed that would maybe get you 60 or 70% of the way there on the aesthetic.
So much expand, I guess.
Yeah, one right on the corner of the building and one right on the.
Gentlemen, I've listened to enough of this. I'm sorry. I've been involved in this project for 29 years, directly and indirectly. And we all represent the same folks that put us in office. We're supposed to be accountable to our taxpayers, and we're supposed to have vision as leaders, correct? Okay, this is not a county project. This is a community project. And 29 years ago, original estimates were $1 million direct economic impact to this community. And the latest estimates nowadays, with the increase in our shows, even with our power poles and our antiquated building facilities, $2 million direct economic impact. So you guys don't have the vision to see what this brings into our community. With everything going on downtown, I don't think you can live without us. But yet you're not working with us? That's where it blows me away. I just don't quite understand your mentality.
I think the mentality is probably similar to anybody. You want to get as much as you can and spend the least amount to do it.
No doubt.
We just need to find what we both agree needs to be done.
Well, let's get it done then, Trent.
And then figure out how best to pay for it.
Okay.
And what I want to do is find out what really has to be done here when you don't really have a usable Expo Center in it. And it sounds like the electrical, the warm-up barn.
It's functional right now, the way it is.
Yes, and not that upgrading these will necessarily get you more business, but not upgrading them will probably, in the long run, cost you the business you already have.
And thus the
That takes away the
reason,
economic
and
impact.
thus the reason we're starting to invest some money, trying to invest some money to reach this goal. I mean, you guys are landlords, we're the tenants, we're at your mercy. But we're talking We're talking tax-paying people here, you know? We aren't a salvage yard. We aren't going to trash the place. We're going to try to make it look decent and try to attract some more. And I'll be honest with you, commissioners, I'm about ready to say, city, it's your property and walk away from it. Do you guys want to run that facility? That's a question for you four. Do you want to run that facility? In our original meetings, I even said, you guys either want us there or you don't. And it was all wishy-washy, nobody said. So I'd like to hear that out of you four now. And whether or not you're going to work with us, because I'll be damned if I'm going to go through many more years of discussing this. I've had my belly full. I'll sit in. And let me qualify this. I'm one of five speaking.
We're closer to each other than I think you might feel like that. I agree, the money comes out of, well, at least city residents pay for it twice. But I don't, you know, when human nature tries to squeeze that last bit of blood out of it, it's easy. But you gotta find out where that happy place is.
Let's get her done.
And I haven't said much, I've just been listening. One of the things I don't want to do is try to micromanage this project because I have no idea exactly what needs to be done in what order. And I guess this kind of confused me a little bit when I look at A, replace barn 3, 5, and 6, and come up. I would like to have kind of an order of what, I was hoping to have something in order of what you wanted to see accomplished. Because at the top, you have the 2.1 million to replace barns 3, 5, and 6 and do the circulation. Well, we know that's way down the road because you're going to try to build funds up over time. So when I look at what you're trying to do, and I understand the arena, is I think we're on the right track when you start talking about you want to do the electrical and ventilation, you know, where can you start getting your best bang for your buck when you're trying to use that 200,000? So to me, I'd like to see that kind of laid out as a time frame of where you think you're able to do some of those, because they're all, you know, necessary. And I think we maybe got off on the landscaping a little bit. I think one of the things that I had thought about when we talk about landscaping is instead of, you know, having to try to, you know, do something to the barn 2 that sits out there, yeah, you know, maybe some landscaping that grows up hides that a little bit and saves you time and having to do that. You know, I mean, you're just have a flexibility. So I guess that's part of mine. I'm not probably as much as I think the ag hall, the what do you guys call it up front, the plaza. I think it looks nice with the lines there. I don't, you know, I move that down my list. I mean, just because I think you're doing half the job, and I don't blame. I don't want to pay to. I couldn't believe the cost to bury lines, and I don't want to spend that either. But I don't know if the plaza does as much for us with those lines there. If you look at the poles, and they've got some over there over Monday, and they've got wires coming out of them. You know, so I don't know.
Go ahead.
Continuing with the spirit of Commissioner White's thoughts about let's get this done. And I guess this question is for my fellow commissioners as much as my friends on the city aisle. But we're getting hung up a little bit on the timing too. And I'm just doing some quick math here. We have a certain amount of money to get this done. And traditionally, counties have not bonded out, have not gone out. We've paid cash for it. But nothing's going to be cheaper in the future, and interest rates are good. So just throwing something out, we go for a $5 million loan somehow. Legal counsel is going to have to help us through this, or bond counsel, or whomever, smarter than me. On a 10-year note, payment's around $550,000, which is $1 million. That takes away all of the priority list that we can get the thing done. We can get to where Commissioner White wants us to be, and we can satisfy your concerns about the priority list. We can get them all done. And I guess that's just a question to throw out is, that's thinking outside the box for county government, but it makes sense to me.
I'd just like to say, because it's a good point, and it just refreshed me a little bit. But one of the things I look at here too is that, why I brought the land, why don't we just do it? I look at this being a step-by-step thing, because I look at this river project and some of the beautification, and even getting this to a phase A, B, C, D, and E, and F is to the point where let's get past that, and let's just say, okay, hey, we have a 25-year lease. You guys do this, and we're going to go on down the road, okay? Because I look at it as that, why can't we, instead of bonding it out, that we just put this in phases? Because by the time we get done, it could be like the jail. Yeah, we put a tax on to build the jail, but by the time the jail gets built, it's paid for, you know? And that's the same thing that Monty is just suggesting, but I look at it as that, why not just phase it in over a period of time? And I think with the...
And I think that's why I just asked.
Yes, and I look at it.
Because, and I'm okay with it, I mean, a 25-year lease is fine, I mean, but based on your numbers and probably with inflation, you're gonna spend 25 years getting all this done. And that's what I think Commissioner White is you know, and what Commissioner Chadwick's saying is, you know, I'm just gonna continually be, and I mean, if we're okay with that, we come up with an order.
And that's presuming that future commissions
Share that.
Yeah.
That's the downsides of that.
Oh, that is.
So just as a think piece, if you bond it at the $200,000 level that you're willing to commit for whatever the period, the term of the lease, or whatever it takes for the project, how much would that be?
Yeah, right. Somebody smarter than me can figure it out. It took me a while just to get this one.
But that, I think that would get you a long way there, and certainly far enough with me to get the lease.
I've been hesitant to talk about that part of it simply because of our other major project that's about 120 days away, that we're going to have to ask for a lot of money. And that's the jail. That's why I've been hesitant to otherwise I'd say I'm jumping right on top of this. I'm still okay with it. If that's what we, because that might be the one thing that passes and that we can have control over, and the jail may not pass. But I can tell you, I'm not gonna vote for spending any money to bury the power lines.
I'll withdraw that.
Okay, that's the only part. Other than that, I'm ready to go. We'll do it absolutely the best we can do.
And I know that this isn't a negotiation, but I think if we came forth with a good faith offer that we're gonna do this, we're gonna tie future commissions together because we're gonna actually bond it out, that might be a negotiating point.
And there are a lot of costs here that may turn out not being as high as what you have. You know, anything involving, I use the term, site work, landscaping. Again, you might be able to get somebody to donate a plus. You know, the buildings probably have a predictable cost, but anything that functionally like landscaping can be stretched over, will have to be stretched over a long period of time anyway, because the construction schedule.
You know, we're showing you what we want this place to look like. I mean, I think I would guess you have to trust us to get that done. Your timetable, I know, is different than that, but.
I would say this tongue in cheek, but we want to be able to use it looking like that.
Yeah, no,
You know, I
It's a
agree
plan for the
with
kids, but what would be, just on top of your tongue, when would you envision it looking like that?
I would say in 10 to 15 years. I mean, I'm being realistic, that's without bonding. If we bond it, we start it tomorrow and get the doggone thing done, we got a 28-year lease, basically is what it amounts to. That is a selling point to me.
I've lived in this town since I was 10, 11, I can't remember ever seeing external upgrade to that facility. You're talking over 50 years. And some of that, I think, falls in the fact that, well, we don't own the land, so pumping this money into it when the lease is gonna be up in 20 years or something, has kind of held back seeing that done. And I appreciate your remarks I read in the paper, whether they quoted you right or not is questionable, but maybe we do have too many cooks in the kitchen. Maybe we need to reduce the cooks and so that just one entity takes responsibility, because this tug of war is not conducive to getting something done. And that doesn't mean that you folks aren't willing to see something done. I'm a lot more aggressive than what the chairman is in my thoughts of how quick this could happen. But
I'm going off this paper.
yeah,
This has been proposed to me.
I'm going off what I've heard also, and I honestly believe that, and there again, you got 3 votes, and I'm just one of those, so.
I don't know if your question ever got answered about the term of the lease, but I think some of the commission's early discussions were just trying to synchronize the useful life of the proposed improvements to the term of the lease. And so, you know, we zeroed in on 25 years based on what we thought our understanding of the proposed improvements were. But I think, I don't think, there was a concern about having the lease term outrun the life of the improvements, and then we're on the back end of that lease and disrepair. And again, I'm not necessarily speaking for the commission, but I think there was a consensus of.
Am I hearing you right, Mike, then that you would be willing to expect to have these improvements made by the last year of the lease?
Well, admittedly, our conversation was before we got into the overtime scenario, so it was more geared at what are the proposed improvements and what's the likely useful life of those improvements, and then have the term of the lease match up to that. The concept of making improvements over time kind of came after the city's commission's discussion about that.
Well, we keep going back and forth though about, I mean, I'm with Mike White, let's get it done, but we need to know what we're supposed to get done with your timetable. Am I missing some point there, or?
Well, I guess the 2 ways proposed. One, at one extreme with the bond, fix it all, and then basically spend the rest of the lease just paying for it. The other way is what we've been working on initially here today, which is do some big stuff first, and then try to figure out at what point you do the rest of the stuff. I don't imagine you want to get to year 26 of a 20-year lease.
No, not really.
And grudgingly have to spend another $500,000 on something that you made a lease on. It covers another 2 years. So,
And I guess another concern I just put on the table was in the long-term format. Your $200,000 a year at year 10 is going to be worth about, what, 8/10 of that, and a year 15.
And the construction cost is going to be double.
And so if you really want to give the taxpayers what your money's worth, the bonding option makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
And gets everybody there faster, whatever manner or chunk of it you bite off.
I'll cut to the chase here. If we agree to bond this, you willing to give us a lease now?
30-year lease.
We started out saying this is not going to be negotiated.
the only reason we had to get in that, we're all looking around at our city attorney and saying.
Well, you can answer it, but doesn't mean you haven't signed any contract.
But your question was this proposed scope, alternates in or out?
Alternates.
Yeah,
As in
Oh.
the ethos,
That's on the second page. Well, the alternates are out, because we're looking at 5.7 million. I'm just one guy.
My figures that I was doing was a $5 million bond, knowing that we have some money available.
Knowing that we have some money available, $5 million bond.
I think we make our
And to get on Mike's side without kicking a dead horse any more than we kicked that poor sucker already, you know, if you bond it and go through with it, I'm just one vote too, but I'd give you a 30-year lease.
I'm trying to get to the vision point that Commissioner White is talking about, and not hoping that a future commission 10 years has the same vision as us. I want this group to have that vision.
Yes, because Commissioner Didrikson talked about doing this in 10, 15 years, but based on inflation and based on 200,000 a year, again, I understand your concern when all of a sudden you're towards the end of your lease, depending on who you're negotiating with, and now you're still supposed to spend another $500,000 on something that hadn't been done.
I hear you.
It makes a lot of sense to do it up front and enjoy it while you're paying for it.
And part of our conversations over time has been the taxpayer. You know, here we are, we're gonna go bond for another $5 million. You know, I mean, don't know how much the city is bonded out right now, the school board. You know, we've been pretty debt-free over on our side of things, but now somebody alluded to it earlier, we're asking the same guy for the dollar. And they're getting tired of handing their money away, I think.
If you're wise about it, I mean, we just saved $1.8 million refinancing, and there's gonna be, the economy's gonna go south, there's gonna be another recession, there's no cheaper time to bond, probably in the last decade than it is right now.
I still say that, again, I think Commissioner White made some good points. He talked about this as being a community project. I still say that the taxpayers on a community project that's quality, they're ready to pay for. I agree. If they're not, then they can vote me out of office next time.
We still, I don't know where we stand, but I still leave my question on the table, which is, if we agree to bond, are you willing to give us a lease?
Well, he answered.
Yeah, he answered, just like I am. If Joe and I can do it, we're gonna get this done.
I think we're gonna be back in 3 weeks, settle.
Well, I'd like to do it quicker than that. I don't know if we can do it quicker than that. That frustrates me, the wheels of government. It turns so slow, but
Turn over your right shoulder and ask those.
I'm afraid to look back there.
Administration on our side has already done some research when it comes to that option of bonding, so it would just be a matter of kind of refining that just a little bit and getting some more comfortable numbers that the county commissioners can look at appropriately. I can look at it in two different ways, the phased approach or the bonding approach, and propose that to have the county commissioners look at that to be able to digest it, and I can do that pretty rapidly.
I'll ask our other commissioners. September 30th is a fifth Monday, although I think
We are trying to schedule a special meeting, so yes.
So we could have two special meetings, and that would be at our regular 4 o'clock time.
Could be.
So we could meet before that, if there'll be preferably 4 or 5 of us here. Do you know what you're?
I'm in.
I'm available, but I will have had a shoulder surgery that I'm going. So I may still be taking something you might all want to take too.
He may have a drug-induced
Mayor Davis, would you expect the county commissioners to be present at that too, or is that?
Please.
Okay, unfortunately, the 30th is already slated for our county administrator interviews, and I do not know how long that day will take, so that's the only hang up on the county's end.
We haven't, we've just tentatively scheduled that day for that thing. That's a Tuesday, isn't it?
No.
That's a Monday.
I
The
think
30th is a Monday.
I think we might be able to pull a lease together, act as the city commission, and then forward it to you for consideration on Tuesday, if that helps.
Does for me, but I mean. What time on your Monday, are you talking like your 2:30 study session?
Actually, that's a fifth Monday, so we don't normally meet. We're in the process of trying to call a special meeting, so it'll probably be, well, I was assuming 4, but we haven't polled the commissioners in their preferred time yet.
I'm free all day.
You know, and the other portion of it is, Hannah, that we don't know if we're gonna have one viable candidate or 5,
That
you
is
know.
correct.
So, and we'll know that after tomorrow.
That is correct.
So we'll be able to put a more
What do we
definitive.
tentatively plug into that date? with the
Well, that's
city?
fine. That's kind of what I'm.
We can do that
looking for, yeah.
appropriately. Our meeting tomorrow, we'll have a little better idea as far as what the candidate listing and interview schedule might look like for those interviews. There's always the potential of being able to reschedule those interview dates. It's just makes it difficult to make sure that that
Invite them to come see the commission. It's part of the interview process.
Sorry, this-
Yeah, they might not want to come back.
But on the other hand, it's, wow, place for the city and the county.
Work at it.
They might like that.
I was saying it.
So now are we done then?
Unless there are any questions, I'll defer, I guess we both have to dismiss separately. It's like 2 classes in school.
Move adjourn.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Second.
City County Commission wishes to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.